If you're over 40, there is one mistake that almost guarantees that you will become weaker every year, and it has nothing to do with your age. After over 40 years of bodybuilding, coaching thousands of clients, competing myself, I have become convinced of one thing. We don't stop lifting because we get old. We get old because we stop lifting. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to build muscle, stay lean, protect your joints, and remain strong for the rest of your life. And if you believe that getting weaker is simply a normal part of aging, by the end of this video, I am sure that you will change your mind. Today, I want to introduce you to what I call the over 40 blueprint. And this is not just a bodybuilding program. This is not just a workout routine, but a philosophy for remaining strong, healthy, and physically independent for the rest of your life. The great threat to healthy aging are not wrinkles, is not gray hair, is not even body fat, is weakness. People often say you should stop lifting because you're getting old, but I believe in opposite. We become old because we stop lifting and we stop challenging our body, because the human body has been designed to lift, to push, to pull, to climb. And if we don't challenge the body to do these things on a regular basis, to produce force, we simply stop demanding those things. And our body begins removing the tissue that it no longer needs. And that tissue is muscle. One of the biggest health problems after 40 is called sarcopenia. Simply put, it's a gradual loss of muscle mass and strength with age. A lot of people think that this is normal, that this is natural, but actually this is not. Most people don't notice this in their 40s, but they do notice in their 60s and 70s. Suddenly, getting out of chair becomes very difficult. Carrying shopping bags, it becomes tiring, and walking upstairs feels exhausting. Balance deteriorates. You've seen so many times people, as they age, they're not balancing well. They're not climbing stairs, they can't carry heavy objects, because simply muscles becoming weaker and smaller. And automatically your bones will become weaker, because if there is no stress, muscle stress on the bone, as we get through exercise, the bones have no reason to stay strong, so they become brittle. People assume that this happened suddenly, but it didn't. It began decades earlier. The process simply went unnoticed. And here is the important point. Much of this decline is preventable. When people reach 40 or 50, many receive advice that sounds sensible. And this is: don't lift heavy weights, walk more, protect your joints, keep active, use light weights. Now, don't misunderstand me. I do walk every day, and I think walking is important for many reasons, especially outdoors walking, because that type of walking is very beneficial, as I have explained in a video that I dedicated to outdoor walking. So if interested, have a look. Stretching is also important. Mobility is important. Moving around is important. But none of these things replace resistance training. And these things certainly don't replace compound liftings, because only resistance training tells your body this muscle is needed. Without that message, the body will start shrinking the muscle and slowly removing it. Many people think that muscle is just cosmetic, but this cannot be further from the truth. Muscle tissue is metabolically the most active tissue, and when it comes to longevity, is the most important tissue. Muscle tissue improves insulin sensitivity. It helps regulate blood sugar. It increases resting metabolic rate. It supports healthy joints, also protects the skeleton. Muscle tissue improves balance and allows you to remain independent. So muscle isn't vanity. Muscle is your health insurance. The stronger you become, the greater your reserve against aging. Now, here is where many training programs go wrong. People spend hours performing simply inferior exercises. They spend time doing kickbacks, some very light dumbbell raises, all kind of cable exercises, machine after machine. But let me tell you something. There is nothing wrong with these isolation exercises. I use them myself. but they should not become the foundation of your training. The foundation of your training should always be basic multi-joint exercises. Exercises that involve multiple joints, multiple muscle groups, large amount of muscle mass, because these exercises create the greatest adaptation. So for example, when you do squat, you're not simply training your quads, you're training your glutes, you're training your hips, you're training your lower back, you're training your core, you are also training your balance, coordination, your nervous system. So you see how much benefits you get when you perform this king of all exercises, squat. Unfortunately, many people after 40 start avoiding squatting for whatever reasons, but this is absolutely wrong. Then you have rowing movements. When you do rowing movements for back, you use your lower back, your middle back, use your trapezius muscles. You also use your arms. When it comes to overhead presses, again, multi-joint exercise. You're using your shoulders, your triceps, your core, your back gets stronger because it's stabilizing the movement. The same applies obviously to bench press, another multi-joint exercise in which you're using your pectoralis muscles, your front shoulder, your lateral delts, you use your triceps. Then you have obviously pull-ups. You use so much muscles doing pull-ups. You're using obviously your back, your shoulders, you're using your arms. So these movements are simply what is your body designed to perform. Our body is designed to perform like pulling, pushing, pressing, and we actually simulate those necessary movements with resistance, which not just strengthens your muscles but also your connective tissues and your bones, not to mention other systems like cardiovascular, respiratory, etc. And this brings us to one of the biggest misconceptions in fitness. People believe that lifting heavy damages the body. In reality, when performed with good technique, remember that lifting heavy has to be performed in good technique, appropriate progression, and adequate recovery, heavy resistance training strengthens the body, is not damaging your body. Your bones become denser, tendons become stronger, ligaments adapt, muscles become thicker, the nervous system becomes more efficient, your body becomes more resilient. So remember, the key is not just to lift recklessly. I'm not saying you should be doing powerlifting or weightlifting. This is very dangerous game. You know, if you're watching my videos, what type of training I consider as the most effective bodybuilding type of training, which will not only strengthen and develop your muscles, but also all necessary surrounding tissues and also your bones. So the key is to lift intelligently, heavy enough to stimulate adaptation, but not so heavy so your techniques break down and also the risk of injury increases. If you look at the greatest bodybuilders in history, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Frank Zane, Lee Haney, Serge Nubret, and so many others, like Albert Beckles, Robbie Robinson, they actually all trained in a way that I advise, and they didn't just train to have large muscles, they also built bodies that remain functional for decades. Some of them are still looking great and still training on a daily basis. But they train consistently, they train progressively, and they train with compound movements as foundation. Everybody that I have mentioned used bench press, pull-ups, squats, rows, all these basic exercises. So they also use isolation work in order to refine their bodies, but compound lifts literally build them. And this is the lesson that modern bodybuilding sometimes forgets. Now, you need to understand then when you get 40, 50, 60, even 70, your body still responds to resistance training. Perhaps not as quickly as when you were 20, but it still adapts. It still becomes stronger, you can still build more muscle and still improve bone density, still become healthier. And age does change the speed of progress, but it does not eliminate the possibility of progress. And that may be the most encouraging message to all. Now you understand that multi-joint exercises or basic exercises, they are foundation of your training and obviously the main reason for your great benefits. Now, immediately, another question follows. Why are compound exercises so much more powerful than isolation exercises? So what actually happens in your body when you squat, when you row, when you press? And this is exactly what I'm going to explain next. Imagine you perform a biceps concentration curl. So what happens? You're only targeting your biceps muscle, and that's fine. But now imagine what happens when you perform a squat. Suddenly, your quadriceps, your hamstrings, your glutes, calves, lower back, abdominals, upper back, and even your nervous system become involved. You see the massive difference in performing single isolation exercise and then performing a compound exercise like squats. So the benefits are simply without comparison. So one exercise like squats almost stimulates the whole body, while a single exercise like biceps curls stimulates only one muscle. And this is why compound exercises are so powerful. They don't simply build one muscle, they teach entire body to function as a single coordinated system. And this is exactly what we need as we age, because life doesn't isolate muscles. Life requires movement, picking up suitcase, lifting your grandchild, carrying shopping bags, climbing the stairs, and these are all compound movements, not isolation exercises. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, but deadlift is also a very important exercise. But I will be very careful there, because deadlift is exactly compound exercise. It will stimulate a lot of muscles on your body. But at the same time, this is the riskiest exercise that you can do. I have seen so many people getting injured, destroying their tendons like biceps tendon, shoulder tendon, injuring their backs, knees, and also so many having hernia in their abdominal region by doing deadlift. So I don't recommend deadlift as classical deadlift, as you know, but I do recommend straight legs deadlift, which is also very effective because it's still hinge movement. So you will again activate your hips, your lower back, and also your hamstrings, but in much safer way. Another exercise which I perform on a regular basis, as well as straight legs deadlift, is hyperextension. So this is another beautiful, fantastic, very effective exercise. No risk of injuries. And with that exercise, you will strengthen your lower back, your spinal erectors, also your hips, your glutes. And it's an exercise that will strengthen that part of the body, but also make you very functional every time you want to lift something from the floor or bend over, lowering heavy objects, etc., etc. So, although many people will argue against what I just said, I'm telling you this from my own experience and experience with thousands of clients. And for that reason, I have concluded that deadlift is a classical way of lifting heavy from the floor. Is a very dangerous exercise. It gives you some benefits, but the risk of injury overwhelms the benefits. And therefore, I have suggested two exercises for you which can and should replace deadlift for longevity purposes and also lowering the risk of injuries. Now we have bench press. Again, there is a lot of debate about bench press. Oh, you should not do bench press, it's risky, it's this and that, but that's not true. Bench press is absolutely one of the essential exercises for your upper body muscles, and is a compound exercise. There are two main joints working there, obviously shoulder joint and elbow joint. And while performing bench press, you're not just strengthening and developing your chest muscles, but also your shoulder muscles and your triceps. So coordination of this part of the body improves dramatically, as well as strength and size of these muscles. And bench press is still one of the key exercises for developing upper body, especially chest, shoulders, and triceps, in the best possible way. If done correctly, obviously bench press is a very safe exercise. But I will talk about intensity and way of performing for maximum results and lowest risk of injuries. Now, when it comes to overhead press, for shoulders, again, it's a very, very important and phenomenal exercise. You strengthen your shoulder joint, your ligaments, obviously the shoulder muscles, also the triceps is involved, your elbow is getting involved, so you're strengthening and developing a lot of muscle there, and at the same time you are strengthening also your bones and connective tissue. So essential exercise for upper body muscles. Pull-ups as well as rows are compound exercises, and they will involve many different muscles. Like, for example, doing pull-ups, you will engage your latissimus dorsi muscle, then teres major, teres minor, then obviously your biceps, your forearms. So you see the shoulders, you see how many trapezius as well, up to the point. You see how many different muscles will be engaged in this exercise. When you do rows, you will be engaging mainly your trapezius muscle, which is the big, huge muscle on your back. Also your rear delts, your latissimus muscles, your forearms, your biceps, your lower back. And this is the reason why these exercises benefit you so much as you get older, because not only you are developing more muscle, but you're becoming stronger in all these different muscles. You're strengthening your tendons, your ligaments, your joints, and benefiting dramatically with a minimum risk of injuries, obviously if everything has been done correctly. Now let us address something very controversial. Many people over 40 said you should stop lifting heavy, but I disagree. Now, when I talk about lifting heavy, I'm not saying that you should be recklessly lifting heavy in 1, 2, 3 reps. Heavy is heavy as much as you can lift in right form, in required number of reps and required number of sets. So therefore, lifting heavy and applying progressive overload, as I have explained in so many videos, where I explain what progressive overload really is to benefit you 100% with minimum risk of injuries. So progressive overload is not just attempting to lift heavier all the time. This is disaster, and obviously you should never do that, regardless of your age, and especially if you're over 40. So you cannot be reckless. You cannot be just thinking, oh, in order to be in good shape and stay strong for the rest of my life, I have to lift every time heavier and heavier. This is not true. When I talk heavy, I talk intelligent heavy. So heavy weights that you can lift in X amount of sets, X amount of reps in perfect form. And I will come back to that in a minute. Now, when it comes to repetitions, as you know from my other videos, if you've seen them, if you didn't, then let me remind you again. I advise anywhere from 8 to 12 reps for upper body muscles and 12 to 20 reps for quads, for example. Now, the reason for that is that this is the number of reps, especially if they are performed under time under tension, which is 3 to 4 seconds. Then you are using the most effective weights that you can actually use in order to target the muscle effectively. Now, people are saying, oh, you should not do too many reps when you get older. You're better off doing low reps and heavier weights. Absolutely not true. You should be intelligent and understand why you are lifting weights in the first place. So if you are trying to build muscle, which is the key factor for longevity and mobility and independence, then what I said to you is the best formula for achieving these results. So 8 to 12 reps for upper body muscle. If you drop under 8, if you do 5, 6 or 7 reps in your last set, that's fine. This is nothing wrong with it. But this will be your last set. Now, quads are different muscles because of their anatomical structure. They're made of different muscle fibers, not as your chest, biceps, or latissimus. And therefore, they require different attitude, different approach to training them. And this is why I advise 12 to 20 reps. So again, you start with 20 reps doing squats or doing a leg press, and keep weight the same. As you progress in the next few sets, the reps will start dropping down. Once you come to 12, or maybe drop below 12 in your last set, maybe 8 or 9 reps doing leg press, for example, that will be your last set. But this number of reps is absolutely necessary if you want 100% of benefits. If you start going low, if you start lifting 1, 2, 3 reps, 4 reps with maximum weight, the balance changes, it shifts. So the balance between benefits and risk shifts towards higher risk. And I would not advise you to do that, because if you get injured as you get older, it will take much longer to recover. You know, if you get injured when you're 20, it may take you a week or two to recover. But if you're 60 or 70 and you get injured, you you damage your tendon or something, recovery may go for many, many months. And this is another reason why you should be training intelligently and applying the procedure that I am advising, the particular number of reps. Now, the next question that I should answer is how many sets should you train if you are over 40? So many people again think that doing 10 sets per week per muscle group is all that you need to do. But again, I disagree with that. You need to stimulate that muscle efficiently, and that is not going to happen with 10 sets, for example, for your chest or your back or your legs. It's simply not enough. So most of you will be able to do maybe 15, 16, 20 sets. I recommend that your target should be anywhere from 20 to 30 sets for large muscle groups like chest, back, and legs. So when it comes to shoulders, around 16 sets will be fine. Biceps and triceps, each 12 to 15 sets. Abs, maybe 10 to 15 sets. Calves, 10 to 15 sets per week. And this will be the best number of sets that you should do if you are over 40. This will allow you to optimize muscle growth. This will allow you to put enough stress and right metabolic challenge, not only for your muscles, but also for your cardiovascular system and your hormones. Now, when I say 20 to 30 sets per large muscle group, that does not mean that you should immediately start doing 20 to 30 sets. This is your signpost, your guidance. This is what I recommend. This is what I do. My clients are doing the same. Now, you have to take the message. You rather need higher number of sets than lower number of sets, because usually people who train with lower number of sets, they go with extremely high intensity, very heavy weights, low reps. And again, this is very risky for you. So what I advise you to do is to do whatever you can. If you're doing 10 sets per muscle group right now, you should increase that to 12 or 15 and continue progressing. As you progress, as you become better, stronger, as you start developing muscles, you will be able to do more sets. And the target, again, is to be between 20 and 30. So that will happen eventually, but it has to happen spontaneously. You can't just jump into it because I have said 20 to 30 sets. This is not a holy grail. This is simply target. This is advice, your point of destination. Now, how long is going to take you to get there? It may take you a few months. It may take you a few years. But at least you know now where you should be heading to. Another very important thing that I want to mention is that you should not train to failure. Because if you train to failure, your risk of injury will dramatically increase. People in their 20s and 30s were damaged badly. They have ruptured their tendons, as you know, from professional bodybuilding, and not just professional. Many people have got injured unnecessarily because they were training to failure. So if you train to failure, first of all, the risk of injury will go through the roof. Second, you will never be able to do enough sets. And third, training to failure will create the environment for junk volume, because after the set of failure, everything else that you do is not going to be as good as if you go close to failure. So I advise you to train close to failure. So when you reach that point that you can only do one more rep in your set, this is where you should stop. So you should stop anywhere from 1 to 2 reps close to failure. That will guarantee you, first of all, perfect form in every exercise. Second, very low risk of injuries. Third, it will allow you to do more sets, hence more quality reps per workout. And that will stimulate growth, stimulate strength, and also help you recover better. Now we come to recovery. Recovery is also extremely important. If you don't recover from your workouts, again, you are risking unnecessary stress on your central nervous system. You are risking injuries. If you are not recovered, you are not going to grow. The body will start shrinking your muscles, constantly putting you in the risk area. So recovery is absolutely essential. In order to recover for every next workout, first of all, you need to train close to failure. Second, you need to use perfect form in every exercise. Third, You should train every muscle once per week. Remember that. Not 2 or 3 times per week, once per week. I have again devoted many videos on that subject and explained why you should train every muscle once per week. Either you are 20, 30, not to mention 40 or 60. So training muscle once per week will allow that muscle to fully recover, but not just the muscle. Connective tissues, joints, which you use obviously when you are exercising every muscle, they need longer to recover. And especially your CNS, especially localized CNS. So when you train your chest, for example, on Monday, and you have the whole week to recover for next session on Monday, you will enter the gym next Monday training chest 100% ready, fully recovered. That localized area, neural pathways of this particular section of the body that you will be training will be fully recovered. If you train twice per week, that same muscle, you will not be fully recovered and you will be entering very risky environment for your health, for your central nervous system. Your joints and injuries will become very likely. So every muscle once per week. You train 4 times per week or 5 times per week, regardless. Every muscle should be trained once per week. Another important thing when it comes to recovery is protein intake. You need to understand that as we age, we absorb a bit less protein than when we were 20 or 30. So if you are 40, 50, 60 or more, you need to eat more protein because we absorb less. Why do we absorb less? First of all, our concentration of hydrochloric acid in our stomach decreases with age. So you will need a bit more protein rather than less. Protein is the key macronutrient, not only for your muscles, but also for your nerves, also for your other tissues like skin, hair, nails, heart, lungs, liver, blood, hormones. Every tissue in the body, every organ, vital organ, requires amino acids. So I think that there is straightforward that protein is absolutely essential. So you need to make sure that you eat enough protein. Maybe 2 grams per kg, maybe more, depending on individual. And obviously that source of protein should always be the highest quality protein found in eggs, liver, red meat, chicken, fish, and for some people in dairy. Another factor that definitely impacts recovery is sleep. You need to sleep at least 8 hours every night, and also whenever you can, you should or you can have a nap as well, 1 hour, hour and a half during the day. That will help you greatly to recover. So absolutely make sure that you sleep enough every day. One of the biggest lessons that bodybuilding taught me is that spectacular results rarely come from a spectacular workouts. If you want big results, serious results, they come from consistency. You have to be consistent. I have never missed a single workout in my 45 years of training. Never, ever. So if I can summarize my character with one single word, that will be consistency. You cannot expect spectacular workouts every single time you enter the gym. Sometimes you will perform better. Sometimes you may be tired. Maybe you didn't sleep. But it doesn't matter. You have to keep going. If your training plan is 4 sessions per week, you stick to that plan week after week. Don't try to find excuses not to go to the gym. Don't miss weeks or workouts. Consistency is absolutely essential. So if you are consistent, everything that I have said will help you progress on a regular basis for the rest of your life. So if you are over 40, I want you to remember one thing. Your best years don't have to be behind you. You can still build muscle. You can still get stronger. You can still improve your physique. I had clients who came to me on the age of 55. On the age of 65, 70, 78, they looked better than ever. So remember this. You also can improve your health by training regularly, consistently, and apply all this advice that I have just mentioned. Your body will never lose the ability to adapt to effective stress that you will apply through your workouts. That simply requires right stimulus, and that stimulus is progressive resistance training. Heavy enough to challenge you, not too heavy, not recklessly heavy, always performed in good technique, combined with sufficient volume, meaning suggested number of reps, suggested number of sets, training every muscle group once a week, and also supported by right recovery. And this protocol, repeated consistently year after year, is what I called blueprint. Not just for bodybuilding, but for living healthier, stronger, and more independent life. So let me leave you with this. Don't judge your training, but how exhausted you feel after your workout. Judge it by the person you have become. Every squat, every press, every row is an investment in the next 20 or 30 years of your life. Because one day, the strength that you build today may be the very thing that allows you to remain independent tomorrow. And in my opinion, there is no better investment than that. And if you like to learn how to structure properly your training over 40, your training volume, exercise selections, recovery, and nutrition, you will find links to my programs and ebooks in description below. So after more than 40 years in bodybuilding, coaching over 3,500 clients and helping them to get in the best shape of their lives, competing 46 times, winning 17 titles, I have published for you 13 ebooks which are fully loaded with everything that you always wanted to know about bodybuilding. So if you want to expand your knowledge and widen your horizons, simply click on the link in the comments and you can download my ebooks. Also, for the ones who want to learn how to perform in perfect form, I have published for you the Bodybuilding Blueprint course, in which I personally demonstrate and explain the most effective exercises for all muscle groups. So if you want to learn how to train in perfect form and stop wasting time in the gym, click on that link in the comments and you can access my Bodybuilding Blueprint course. So guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to my channel, like the video, share the video, and also send me your comments. And I will see you in the next video.